Welcome to another episode of Tzuzamen. Hi, Tzip.
Hi, Tzili.
Hi, Catherine Perez in London. The
Hi, how are you?
communication.
But everybody likes to call her Cat.
Do you hear us, Cat? Okay.
Yeah,
Communication
I can.
person for the organization, Me Too, but not for a Jew.
Unless you're a Jew.
Right. Catherine, how did you get to this organization?
Oh, what is it?
Well, yeah, let me tell you. So first, the organization was launched by Danielle. So Danielle Ofek is a social entrepreneur Israeli. She lives in Washington. And, after the event of October 7th, she realized that something needed to be done and that someone needed to speak up for Israeli women and girls and actually speak their truth and make sure that the crimes that were committed on October 7th would be spoken out and that people would act as witnesses to the horrors that Israeli women suffered. And so Danielle decided to create an organization called Angle, who's an advocacy group. And under this umbrella, she created various campaigns and movements. And the campaign Me Too Unless You're Jew is one of those projects that she launched. So there's a website. It's very easy to find it. You just Google Me Too Unless You're a Jew, and that's the first thing that pops out. And she's taking on UN women. So what she decided to do is to go straight to the top of the pyramid, address the problem, which is essentially bias and prejudices towards Israeli women and girls. And when I say Israeli women, I'm including Arab Israelis as well, because they suffered as well, and it's often forgotten. And all she's asking for is basically for UN women to abide by their mandate, which is one of impartiality, objectivity, and they haven't done any of it. Number one, there's a leadership issue in that several of the leadership at UN Women is profoundly biased to the point where actually we feel they peddle Hamas's narrative. We've seen this on Twitter and social media. Also that there's literally nothing that was said on October 7th other than to say something like 2 months after the event that crimes were committed, but they refused to call Hamas a terrorist organization. They refused to Hamas was actually acting. The campaign, everything that was against Israeli women and girls were in fact genocidal. That is in line with what Hamas wants to achieve. They didn't say anything about this. And all they concentrated on was basically Palestinian women in Gaza, which is fair enough. They can, if they want to, and they should, if crimes have been committed by Hamas against Palestinian women. But the fact that they've forgotten Israel, to the point where it doesn't even compute on their map of the Middle East, is not okay. And so we decided to hold them accountable, to expose their bias and their agenda, and to redress the situation. And for that, we have a plan. We feel that it's time for the leadership to be vetted properly in terms of should they voice political opinions. They're free to do so. It's we love free speech, but then in this case, they cannot lead UN Women. They should go and quit because that's not what the mandate demands of them. We should make sure that there's a body that hold them accountable and that everything that they do and say is vetted and actually data checked, that there's no lies being said and being replicated. Because what people often don't understand is that UN Women sets the tone for what happens in the human rights industry as a whole. So whatever the UN will say, other groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and countless other will basically repeat it, quoting their report as a reference. And so if we don't make sure...
Just a second, Kat. Can you describe the structure of the organization in the United Nations? What is their job? What usually they do? What happened that it stopped and we didn't get
UN Women?
Yeah.
By their job, and this is literally what's on their website, is to advocate for the rights of women and girls across the world. And whenever violations or crimes are committed against women and girls, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or whatever other differences they may have, UN Women has the mission to report on it fairly, objectively, without bias, without any form of political agenda. That's their mandate. And when it comes to Israel, they have failed biblically over the decades. But what happened on October 7th was of such, it was so horrible. It was another genocide. That for them to ignore it, and I say ignore it as in nothing said, not a mention, not a footnote, not a tweet, nothing for 2 months. And that a very, very brief statement was issued after immense pressure was exerted, you know, from Jerusalem, from London, from Paris, from Washington, saying, demanding accountability. Then they said, yes, crimes were committed by Hamas. That's it. No report, no call for an inquiry, nothing. So very recently, a UN rapporteur went to Jerusalem to act as a witness and to try to figure out exactly what happened on October 7th, which is wonderful. Too late, we feel, a bit too late. We had to work way too hard. And when I say we, not just us, but everybody had to work way too hard to get them to even acknowledge that something happened and that maybe they ought to actually visit the country and figure out what happened. Nothing was said until now. No report was ever issued. There's been countless reports, however, on the alleged crime that the IDF committed against Palestinian women and girls in Gaza, which I can appreciate. They have a duty of care towards all women. And if crimes are committed, of course, they should speak about it. We're not running away from that or from accountability. Our issue is that Israeli women and girls were not acknowledged on October 7th at all to this very day. So yes, they said crimes were committed, but they refused to call Hamas a terrorist organization, which they are. It's been proscribed by the US, by Japan, by the EU, by the UK, countless other countries. The UN has a duty of care, has a duty to the truth, and they haven't. They haven't because they are being political, and that's why we want to challenge them. And UN leadership has several women who are supposed, again, to be acting as the voices of and advocate for women and girls. And some of them have proven to be very biased and very anti-Semitic, and actually siding on the side of Hamas many times over on social media. And so we feel that we should hold them accountable. We're not trying to silence them because, again, free speech matters. But if they want to hold the views that they hold, which is up to them, it's their business, they should be held accountable because their mandate demands that they are objective and they're not being objective. And so we feel that they should go, quite simply.
You know, I raised a question. You kept saying free speech.
Mm-hmm.
So we have here in the States on the campuses, you know, universities, we have really, and I'm not in London and other places, really extreme demonstrations pro-Palestinian, right? And in the name of free speech, everything can be said. And I was wondering, anybody ever sat down and if it's possible to draw a line when you cross it, it's not free speech anymore. It's really actually a violent act against, you know, the other. And it's also...
It becomes abusive.
It's become a wonderful tool for radicalization of people, which you give them either you know, very basic information, so most of them don't really know what they're talking about. They don't doubt the information they get because, for example, I don't know that Israeli in Gaza attacked women. You know, like what happened in
these are two different things because we're talking about the United Nations professional people.
They have to do the line
in order to address this problem.
But they have to be the first one.
They need
to
lead.
Really lead. How far can you go with the freedom of speech?
Not only that, you cannot define between.
It's a tricky one.
Well, it's time it would not be. We have to.
But that's why they have these organizations.
And I agree.
No, but the question if they are dealing with this.
The one thing this is. Yeah, but I agree with you. Do you know the one thing that I feel is that, look, I am for free speech, but I do believe that you're free to say whatever you want, but you need to be held accountable. And sometimes that means...
And you have to base it on knowledge.
Knowledge means that if you know, breaking the law, this is the one thing to understand. Exactly. So people, again, are free to say whatever it is that they want to say because you can't exactly, you know, you can't put a gag on them and tell them, you know, sit down. even if we disagree, and sometimes we disagree profoundly. That being said, I also believe that if people are free to say whatever they want, it's our duty to make sure, in order to create a safe space for society, to prosecute people
Especially
who
the
cross the
UN.
line. And this is what people don't understand. You're free to say whatever, but you're not free of accountability. Or what is it that you said?
But
Exactly.
the UN,
And that's what we're
you
calling
speak
for.
about the
Because
UN, not
again,
about the
some things were
students.
said that are not okay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah,
we
but
speak
the
about the
UN
UN
women,
and not
some things
just the
were said on
students
social media.
decide, wow, it's so great to go out and put a kafia and shout river, not, they don't know what river, but never mind, as long as they are have action, but
Which is why we're going after the UN, because we feel that, again, if you go to the top of the pyramid, you will trickle
so
down.
the change should so there is two ways to look at it. One of it to come from the bottom up in terms of I'm not saying they can think whatever they want, but there must be a line and there must be knowledge.
Yes.
But or you can start with the UN and the head of the universities should, in case of what's happening on campuses. So we cannot give like a free ticket.
The universities is a little bit different story, because the UN, it's their responsibility. They should.
Oh, I think also the university.
But they should acknowledge, first of all, it's so specific. They should acknowledge on the spot and talk about it and scream. In the universities, a little
But
bit.
they haven't.
Why?
But they have, of course.
When it comes to UN women, after October 7th, nothing was said. Like literally nothing was said for 53 days exactly. And after immense pressure. I mean,
so I think that the voices, impossible that the first voices should come from the UN. I do think from the universities, from all the unions of writers, of or musicians, or for the leaders of the theater. I forget the name. Or for the fund for the endowment of the arts. I mean, whatever we expect. I mean, my heart goes sometimes to. I don't want to sound racist or elitist, but I can see that there are so many sections in society who don't have any place to voice any voice. They don't have a place. So I can understand when something comes their way, they have a need to belong to something. And they join something, the wrong groups. I don't know if I make myself clear, because I don't want to sound elite.
That
but
is an interesting. I didn't think about this way. That's an interesting take. So let me make sure that I understand, so that you feel that maybe the reason why people were so aggressive against Israel was because they just wanted to voice some kind of upset, and then they kind of latched on Israel.
They look at the world and they see chaos. Frightening. There is so much violence within the American society, or there is so much fear in Europe after what happened in Ukraine. Now, how much can they don't have the tools to go out and express their fear. So whenever they have a place to express their fear, so it doesn't, like in drama, sometimes, you can fight, couple can fight on open the window, but it's not open the window. There is another thing that is really at the bottom of the relationships.
It's in life. It's not only in drama.
Right. So I think about those kids who look around, they're scared. So
I think there's more to it, though, because I think they've been fooled into it. There's a lot of guilt in the West, with the whole post-colonialism, where people have been felt that the world has been divided in between, the white, supremacists, and then, the poor oppressed of the world. And I'm not saying that's not true sometimes. It's not true all the times. And I don't believe that people are victims, by the way, because that's taking away the power they have to overcome. And everyone goes through difficult times and they overcome. And Jewish people know more than anybody else what it means to overcome. And we've done this. We've never been victims. And I think that it's a way to absolve themselves of, the crimes that they think their forefathers committed. And so they side with the oppressed. In this case, Palestinians or even radical Muslims, not understanding exactly what it is that they're actually supporting. I think it's just out of guilt and ignorance, because they haven't educated themselves. And I think that universities have become echo chambers for absurdity and ignorance. And it's ridiculous because
And
people
it's
pay good money
terrible
to get
because
educated.
universities should be the opposite. By the way, so how about
Exactly.
if I want to go and reach a, let's say, young person, underprivileged, what tools do I use in order to radicalize him or her? How do you start to radicalize somebody? He's lonely, he doesn't, he's afraid, he doesn't have a lot of venues to conquer whatever he wants to conquer in terms of self-actualization.
There's actually studies that have been done on this, but when it comes to, because look, I mean, the Hamas is an extension of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We know this; it's a proxy. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been very good at targeting sections of society that are upset, disenfranchised, cut off. They're upset about something. So what they do is they usually absolve them of any responsibility. In the sense that they're not telling them, well, you know, it's up to you to get out of your situation. Let me empower you. They don't do that. They tell you, you're a victim. Let me tell you who did this to you. And they create an enemy.
Right.
And most of the time, of course, this enemy is, you know, are the Jews. But we have seen this through history. I mean,
You
in Soviet
differentiate
Russia,
between Jews and Israel?
no, they don't.
They
You know,
don't.
that's the thing. They
Oh.
don't, because if you look,
No,
if you
because the
listen to what
organization keeps saying Jews, Jews, Jews,
that's what they say.
when it's actually now that we're talking about is Israel.
But
Not
they
the
don't
Jews.
make
Are
the
you trying to separate the two?
You mean Israelis and Jews? Well, they're not the same. I mean, Israelis are Israelis. They're not all Israelis.
Yeah, but everybody don't differentiate. They say Jews, Jews, Jews.
Al-Yahud, that's what they call Israelis, Al-Yahud.
So don't
No,
It's interesting.
I think what Tzipi means, it's not from the Israeli point of view, from outside point of view. Once you said Jews, it's general. You generalize all the Jewish people, including Israel, or you're talking
Yes.
about Israelis women, which is not
It
only.
depends. It depends who says it. So
But
if
I want to take you back to Me Too, to your campaign. Do you have? Can you tell at around what ages the women that respond to your campaign?
Between the age of 18 and 35, which is actually quite interesting.
Oh,
So
I'm so happy to fit.
So you have young girls, basically.
Yeah. I think a lot of young people. My daughter is a good example. For example, a lot of young women actually understand that something is not okay. They want to feel that they want to feel that they're being seen and being heard. And when they saw what happened, I think a lot of them understood that it wasn't just against Israeli women and girls. It was really something to do with the systematic erasure of the Jewish identity through the targeting of women, because of course, you know, Jewish women carry the line, the next generation. So I think they understand that something very nefarious and very insidious was at play. That it wasn't just an attack on Israel. It wasn't just a political statement. It goes way beyond that. Daniel actually wrote about this. And so I think that they feel that they need to do something. And what is beautiful about this is that they're not trying to do something out of anger or a sense of revenge. What they want to do is set the record straight for Israeli women, but also for all the other minorities that have been ignored. And to really say, it doesn't matter what you are, what ethnicity, faith, it really doesn't matter. When a crime is committed against a woman, it is something that everyone ought to speak against, stand up for, and say no more, regardless against, you know, who was the victim and who was the perpetrator. Because if you start doing this, you're defaulting on all women. You are condemning all women to actually suffer in silence and never be told, you know, never be given the courtesy of their truth. So even though the campaign started in defense of Israeli women and girls, I think our aim, and the people supporting us understand this, goes really beyond that. And it's really a testimony. It's our testament to the truth to say we want to believe women. We should speak up for women.
But you
all the
know,
time.
once you say, because I hear what you're saying now, and it says unless you're a Jew, and then you really cut out the part of the women, and what it should be, it's basically everybody.
I agree with you, but we wanted to also, Danielle wanted to make a statement and really
I
say,
understand the
have been
sentiment,
forgotten.
because we were like
It might be a very good strategy I cannot say it, but strategia.
Strategy.
Because it's a wonderful, it's a good way to push, what really happened.
Mm.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
But that's what we want to do. But I
But
think
people just
also,
say
I
it
think
didn't
that
happen.
Danielle, I'm sorry?
A lot of people say this didn't happen.
Well, look, I think that the way that Danielle set it out, and I get what she did, and I think it was the clever thing to do at the time. We had to shock people into understanding. Do you get that this happened? Horrible, horrible moment in our history. No one seemed to care. So, do you know, following the whole Me Too movement and this great push for feminism, positive feminism, to empower women and to give them a voice and tell them, you are the actor in your own lives, and we want to give you a platform upon which to speak your
Right.
truth. And then this happened, and no one spoke for us, and they should have. And so we're saying, so it's Me Too, unless you're a Jew, really.
No,
And I think that Danielle wanted to shock people.
For the beginning,
You know what I mean?
it
To
was
shock
very
people
annoying.
and do
Yeah.
this the core and say, like, there's a problem,
The
but
call
our
to
message is
action.
universal. We just wanted to highlight the hypocrisy
Right.
of a movement that
But it
wants
is
to
a call
embrace
to
a
action.
woman, unless you're a Jewish woman, and then you don't count.
Right,
Please
right,
go
right.
back to wherever, and
Right.
that's not okay. That's not okay. And yes, we're a Jewish woman, and we care about our people, but we care about all women,
Sure.
It's not
regardless.
okay,
Because
period. And it's not okay anywhere,
exactly,
for any minority.
exactly.
It's a
But I think
much
it's kind of
larger
an in-your-face kind of slogan saying, do you get that there's a problem here? Let's go back to talking universally about women's rights. That was really kind of like the
Mhm.
the angle that Danielle wanted to take. Unfortunately, people have chosen to complain and say, what about other women? Exactly your point. But because you did not get
This
that,
is
you
a
said Me Too,
trigger.
we
Yeah.
were with you.
So what is the reaction of
Mm.
people to your ad? Your ad about the blood on the legs of a woman.
The pants with the blood that was on the United Nations.
What was the reaction?
Yeah.
What was the reaction?
People react. You had two reactions. So you had some people that were saying, "Where are the proofs? It's overly dramatic. It's a Zionist agenda, the usual, very anti-Semitic, very anti-Zionist." Again, dismissing the fact that we're talking about women here. This is not a question like, did it happen? Yes, it did. You know it did. You're being a hypocrite. You're a liar. You're trying to defend the indefensible, because the way I see it, and actually that's the way everyone should see it, denying what happened after everything, and people have seen, you don't
No,
need
I
proof. You don't
think
need
that's about the visual.
The visual of the
yeah,
pants.
but people are saying we're making it up. It did not happen, like, because everyone knows about what we're talking about. So some are denying, but those are detractors, and they demand that we present proof, which is again ridiculous. We don't need to. We shouldn't have to. That's the whole point. But most people are actually quite, they've been shocked and they've been moved, and a lot of people want to help. And this is what we've seen over, I would say, the past month, especially. I think that people are starting to understand that, number one, we're not going anywhere, because this campaign is not Danielle's, crusade as a personal vendetta against UN women. This is a woman who is dedicated to stand up for the truth. She's speaking truth to power. So they're starting to realize that this is not an ego thing. It's not to have her name somewhere on a plaque at the university or to say I'm such a great person. No, it's a woman who has a mission, and she's a mother. She wants to defend. She wants to do the right thing and leave a positive mark onto the world and change the way that things are being done. And I think that people are responding to her in a very positive way. We had people, for example, like Lisa Gable, the former US ambassador to the UN, who's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She has been helping tremendously, introducing Danielle to some pretty influential people, putting the weight of her entire career at her disposal, which is more than generous. And I would say we're glad that she did, because she's doing the right thing. But we didn't expect that she would help to the length that she did in terms of, exposure and pushing for people to give Danielle the tools that she needs to go forward. We've had countless people in the UK offering their expertise and their time and their counsel, and their support has been tremendous. So it is positive. I can see that there's a rallying of people.
The visual is very, I would say, even aggressive.
Very, very
I
strong.
think,
And
look,
almost like
sometimes
it's like, it's a, for some people it will look manipulative and almost like a boomerang effect, because
well,
it's
here's the
very
thing. Here's
interesting
the
to
thing.
do a study about the image.
Probably, but you know, at the same time, we yes, it is aggressive. I agree with you. It's in your face. But here's the thing. If it did not happen and if those pants did not exist, we wouldn't have to do it. That's what I'm telling people. If that shocks you, do you understand what the person who that happened to, how does she feel? If you're shocked, I want you to be shocked because you should have been shocked without that. But we had to do that for you to understand that something needs to be done. What if it was your mother? What if it was your sister? What if it was your kid? That's what
any-
you
There is
understand.
any writings? I don't remember.
No,
It's
no,
just the visual.
just the
Just
visual.
visual. Just a visual.
And
Have
so I
Because I
wonder
think
if
it's
it
enough.
would be a kind of more effective if there was be a writing what you said. Can you imagine it happens to you? Because
That's
then
kind of
it will be less aggressive, because it will show the humanistic aspect. You bring in like a humanistic kind of feeling to it, which it's kind of wrap the pants with the blood. Can you imagine it happens to you? There is something that when you read
Yeah.
it,
Maybe we should bring you on as an advisor. We should bring you on as an advisor to look. We need all the advice we can get. So I would love to hear your thoughts on everything.
because
I'm
I
being
had to
serious.
question myself why I felt. Now I feel I will I will personally will go more with the ad if there will be some kind of a counterpoint. You know what I mean? Like some kind of dialogue between how we approach those women and how we go to the brutality, or the boldness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catherine, I understand that you're working on a project in London. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about it, or you want to keep it till it's done?
I can tell you some. I'm not going to tell you everything.
Okay.
But basically, what we've done is we wanted to kick the campaign off in the UK. The reason being, the UK is first of all, has veto right at the UNSC. It's a funder to UN Women, so they definitely have a say, and they have leverage when it comes to what happens at UN Women. And we felt that because the US is going through election year, that some of our efforts might get lost in translation a little bit, or may not get, the right kind of momentum that we need. And so we were thinking, so how can we, where else could we do it? What could we do to kind of complement what we've done so far? And of course, the UK came to mind. It makes things a little bit easier because we do have a lot of people here willing to help, including myself. And so we decided to craft a series of events around the campaign. Number one, to introduce Danielle to the UK and to explain to them what is it that we do, what we're planning to do, and what we've done, and where we have been successful, and basically see if other people want to join in, advise us, because it's a very kind of it's very organic. I mean, we don't pretend to know everything, and we welcome ideas and criticism when it's positive and for the good of the campaign. And also we wanted to remind the press here in the UK, why we are doing what we're doing. And so it helps to come here and explain to them face to face, to have a press conference. And we also intend to present our policy recommendation. So again, it's not that we just said, oh, there's a problem with UN Women. Okay, well, duh, everyone knows that now. What are we going to do about it? Because a lot of the time, activists, and this is not a criticism, but it's the reality of the situation. They come up with an issue and they point it out. They shout a lot, they write a lot, they do stuff, but then nothing happens because there's no plan. How do you fix it? We're more in the business of fixing things than to say, let's cancel. Canceling is not feasible. The UN is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. I'd rather we put in place a system that would prevent this to happen ever again to anybody. And also see how can we engage in a positive to have a positive back and forth with UN Women and the UN in general to make things better for everybody and hold them accountable without being without trying to criminalize people or tell them you're a horrible person, you're going to go to hell. Not interested. how do we make it better? How do we move on from this and make it better for everybody else? And then we could draw a line somewhere and say, something bad happened, we fixed it, now it's going to be different. We have a protocol in place, we have a system in place that would prevent it from happening again. Those people who wants to play politics at the UN would be dismissed, immediately. And so we could have some kind of a healthy, ground to work with. That's our hope. And so we intend to present that to the UK, in the hope that our lovely state officials here in the UK and policymakers will take notice. We'll see that we are actually quite reasonable people, that everything that we're asking is very feasible, very doable. It's not going to break anyone's, political agenda. We're not going, we're not going to start coloring outside the lines too much. It's honest, it's simple, it's effective. And that's what we tend to do. So we are aiming for March. There was some delay. We were initially hoping for February, but too many things had to happen before. So now we're aiming for March. And so hopefully I will keep you guys updated to what we're doing. But I feel confident. I feel that we're going to be successful because, again, we're not asking for crazy things. We're asking for accountability in funding. We're asking accountability in the leadership. We're asking that a system be set in place so that if something needs to be redressed, it can be immediately. That there's a system whereby if they don't abide by their own rules, then funding could be withheld until such a time where it's being redressed, which I think is reasonable. And we demand too that there's a data check. So when a report is issued, we want to have a peer review. We want to make sure that everything that they say is true and factual and checked. So it's one thing to say anonymous sources, or when they say, we have a quote from Hamas Health Ministry. Yeah, it doesn't count. It's a terrorist organization. So get another source. So I'm not against the truth or facts. Just make sure it's the source is actually viable, because I'm not interested in what Hamas has to say or their version of the truth. Because even if they happen sometime to tell the truth, still not interested. I want a source that is a third party, that is independent and that is viable and proven to be true.
And they provide it? Anybody from those women who deny, can you provide for them any proof?
Yeah, we do.
So,
We do. We're working on a report. So again, look, we're going to be holding ourselves to the same standards that we want to hold others.
So the question, if you come to them or to one of them or two of them who are important in terms of they have influence, and if you just ask them just to join in the thinking of what should be done, ask them, so how do you think we should prevent neglecting acknowledgement of anything, atrocities that happen to women? We start now. No, to ask them to tell you some advice.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea.
How can, because
I'm telling you, you need to come and advise us. You would be an amazing advisor.
No, it's really to ask them, you women, you care. I know you care. I mean, all your activities in the past show that you care. And maybe we can use your knowledge, just your knowledge. Let's assume the facts are right, what we tell you. Let's other things equal, right?
Yeah.
How would you advise us to approach this? So those women who was raped and, sexually abused.
Instead of attacking them, you'll recruit them.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Some people, I think, you're going to have a hard time recruiting them because they really
No,
don't.
this is really
you can make
a
a very
way
good
to
point.
fix what they didn't do before.
Right.
A very good point.
To include them.
Actually,
but I'm curious, Catherine, did the original Me Too founders, did they ever got in touch with you girls?
No. We heard whispers in terms of, why is it that some people, it wasn't the leadership of Me Too, because we haven't heard from them. But some people felt, and I don't know whether they were speaking on behalf of or just themselves, but we had some criticism as to, why, what about other women? And, what about this? What about that? But we were saying, well, that's exactly the point. It's because you've forgotten us. We were there with you guys, but then you've forgotten us. And we wanted to kind of shock you and remind you like, hey, what about us? That wasn't done. But obviously, we're not positioning ourselves against anybody.
Because I think it's not less important because they had a huge voice and they disappear.
I know, and
It is
we'd
really.
love them. I
I'm
would
taking it to
love-
absurd. I will go and ask Harvey Weinstein.
No.
You know, I tell you what, where I'm very disappointed is that I very much expected that when we launched the campaign initially, I expected that their first reaction would be to reach out and to say, let's do it together, guys. You know, sorry, or, you know, maybe it was an oversight. I mean, you know, it's possible they kind of slipped through the crack, or they didn't realize, whatever it was, we believed that they would come and, you know,
They
kind
saw
of
you
say
as a
like,
competitor?
let's go.
They saw you as a competitor? Like you are competing
kind of-
with her?
They haven't.
It's
I
like
don't know.
reversing
I'm
the
going to be
whole
honest with you. I
campaign
have no
for-
idea.
Yeah,
We
I
don't feel
know.
that way.
Right.
I don't know what they felt. I think that, do you know, look, this is what I feel. There's always two way to, you know, when somewhere there's a situation, there's two way to look at things. Either you try to redress it in a positive manner and say, let me help you fix it, or you could just, you know, feel that, oh, it's an aggression, or it's an attack on, you know, on you
They're
personally.
using us
And I think that that rather than understand where we were coming from, it was a cry for help. It was, you know, us trying to speak. And also remember, people need to remember the context in which that campaign, you know, happened. It was the trauma of October 7th. And I think that we all felt it in different ways, but we were all affected. It was terrible. I don't think that anyone could say that they could, you know, they witnessed what they witnessed and they were not changed by what happened. I refuse to believe that. And so I think that what they did not understand is it was a reaction to a trauma, and that they should have been a bit kinder and understand that we were not aggressive against anybody. We didn't try to hug the narrative. We didn't try. This was a cry out to tell the world, what about us? We have supported you in your, you know, in your fight for women's rights, you know, in the 1950s, 60s. We stood with you in the Me Too movement. We stood with you, Black Lives Matter. We stood with you every step of the way when there was a fight that was worthy to fight for. We were there. And today we need you, and there's no one. And it's hard. And so it was kind of like saying, like,
Very
guys, like,
upsetting.
and I think that they took it personally. I'm hoping that they will now understand that it's nothing to do with them. We're not judging them. We're not holding a grudge. We just
Are you
want.
afraid to publish the faces of women who had different groups of human who fight for human rights, just to publish the faces and ask, where are you?
Well,
Or you're afraid?
Look, I don't want. Here's the thing. I don't want to put anyone. I don't
It's
want to
like you
criminalize
take
people. I
it
don't want to put
basically
people on
to
the
the
spot.
direction of a war a little bit. You need to
So?
recruit them and not to push them away.
Well, yeah,
I
they're
don't,
pushed
because
away
I want
anyway.
to be-
They're pushed
This
away
is
anyway.
what we want. I
No,
want to
we
create a
gotta
space.
be
Danielle wants to
avoiding
create
them.
a space where people can come back.
Right.
So I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna start to put like I don't want to do what people. It's not like I don't want to flog them on the pub, you know, on the public space. I just want them to. We just want to say, guys, come, like, look, open arms.
They will
Like, we're
keep
not
the anti-Semitism.
But I'd like them to realize this is the one thing that I want them to. I would like them to do and have the moral courage to do.
Yeah.
It's okay sometimes to be ignorant. It's okay to be mean out of stupidity. It's okay. We all do it sometimes. Okay. No one's perfect. But have the courage to say, do you know what? I messed up. I did not realize that actually it was a form of anti-Semitism.
Optimistic, huh?
Well, you have to be. I was raised by my grandmother. You have to be.
Yeah.
She was an optimist. But look, people can. I'm not saying that they can change, but we have to hold them accountable, and we have to tell them it's on you.
Right.
It's on you. And look, it's not for me to change them. It's for them to realize that they need to change. And to do otherwise is actually quite stupid because they're shooting themselves in the foot. You messed up, say it. Have like a little, you know, mea culpa, let's move on. Nobody's going to hold it against them. It happens. Anti-Semitism sucks, but it is a thing. It's very much alive. The one thing that I will not forgive and the world should not forgive is people who do know and still choose to be anti-Semitic.
Right.
Because once you do know, there's no forgiveness there to be found. And this is what I'm trying for them to understand is that now that you know, now that you've seen, and we told you and asked you, and we extended a hand, will you still deny us? Because that is a choice. That is a choice and it's a position. And that position will be felt. And again, I'm not trying to be aggressive, but it is the reality.
Right.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing this with us. And I hope that
Thank you guys for talking to
I
us.
ho-
It's a
I
privilege.
wish you success with
Yeah,
all your goals.
right.
It's important for all of us. And good luck in London.
Yeah.
And
What
thanks,
can I tell you?
Tzipi,
Thank you,
and
Tzipi.
Thank you.
And tell you,
see
Catherine.
you next week.
Yeah.